Good morning, and welcome to Worship and Wonder. Today, we will hear another story of some unsung heroes. Unsung heroes are people who are often overlooked or underappreciated, even though they do some amazing things. And these stories will closely mirror the stories that we've been hearing from our ministers, and also the stories that are in the packet that you received in the mail. You may want to talk with your family about how these stories affect you and what you think about these stories. Today's story is called Too Hot to Handle, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And this book doesn't have pictures that you all would be able to see, so use your imagination as I tell the story. When God's people were captured and carried away to Babylon, 3 young heroes continued in their steadfast devotion to God, in spite of great pressure all around them. It wasn't easy for these guys, living in a foreign culture where people worshiped everything from rocks and stars to big gold statues. But even when they were threatened with becoming the main course at the Babylonian barbecue, these guys decided to risk everything and follow the true God. So what are you going to do today? Some of King Nebuchadnezzar's closest advisors asked him. After all, he was king of the entire Babylonian Empire, so he could pretty much do whatever he wanted. Well, there's something I've been thinking about for some time now, he said. Yes, what is it? They were all curious. I'm thinking of building a 90-foot-tall gold statue right in the middle of town. What do you guys think? That sounds splendid, his advisors agreed. So sure enough, not long after that, a huge gold statue was erected right in the middle of the square for all to see. And King Nebuchadnezzar was right there the day it was dedicated. Welcome, one and all, to the dedication of this really cool statue. It's something, isn't it? He asked. Oh, it's something all right, everyone said. You know what else? The king asked. No, what? The people answered. I'm going to have horns and flutes and harps and stuff play every so often. So when you hear them, you're all going to stop, face the statue, and bow down to it. How does that sound? This sounded very strange to most everybody, but because of the king's red-hot temper and his fiery furnace, nobody would disagree. They usually found it in their best interest to go along with whatever he said. Great idea. Love it, they all said in unison. So for days, horns and flutes and harps sounded regularly, and when they did, everybody bowed down obediently to the king's statue. Everybody, that is, except 3 Jewish boys who frankly thought it was pretty stupid to bow down to a piece of metal. Ouch. These guys' names were, are you ready? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They believed there was only one God worth bowing down to, the true and living God. So whenever the horns, flutes, and harps began playing, these 3 just went about their normal routine. No bowing, no scraping. In fact, they didn't seem to hear the instruments at all. This kind of disrespect got under the skin of some of the locals, who went and tattled, that is, they reported the boys' misdeeds to the king himself. They found him in the backyard barbecuing some spare ribs. That's right, Your Majesty. It's like they don't even hear the horns going off. They don't bow or anything. I'm sorry to hear that, the king said as he squirted more charcoal fluid on the barbecue. I know these boys. In fact, they help me out sometimes. Obviously, I can't have these 3 hooligans ignoring royal orders. Bring them in. I'll have a little talk with them and see if I can change their minds. The next day, angry locals dragged Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego before the king. What's this I hear about you disobeying my orders and not bowing down to the gods of Babylon? Don't you see it only makes sense to bow before the gods of the country you're living in? It's only right. When in Rome and all that. So tell you what, when the horns go off again, just bow down like everybody else, okay? His face was starting to turn red. Because if you don't do what I say, you're going to be thrown into the fiery furnace. And I'm not kidding. The 3 boys knew the king was upset because they could see the veins in his neck popping out. The 3 guys looked at each other and started in. You know, we don't even really need to have this conversation because we're not going to bow down to this statue. And if you throw us into the fiery furnace, our God can easily protect us from harm. But even if he chooses not to, we're still going to only bow to him. If you thought the king was enraged before, he was really steamed now. Heat up the furnace 7 times hotter than usual, he ordered his programmers. Nobody was really quite sure how to do that, but somehow they managed to get the furnace 7 times hotter than usual. Then they tied Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and tossed them in. The fire was so hot, it turned the guards who were carrying the 3 boys into ashes. But when the king managed to get close enough to look into the burning furnace, he saw something amazing. He saw our heroes walking around in the fire. They were acting as if they were at someone's party, eating chips and dipping into a pool. But wait, there was something else. Besides Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the furnace, King Nebuchadnezzar saw a 4th guy. It looks like the Son of God, he exclaimed. And it was the Son of God, Jesus himself, coming to protect and encourage our 3 heroes. When the king saw all this, he majorly changed his tune. He brought the guys out and promoted them to be his chief advisors. He even issued a new order. If anyone ever says anything bad against the true God, the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he'll be cut into pieces, and his house will be burned to the ground. Apparently, the king was still stuck on this whole fire thing. But hey, at least he finally realized that the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was the real deal. I wonder what the villagers felt like when they had to go along with the king's idea to build a statue. And I wonder how it felt for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to stand up to the king, even though they knew they were going to be in big trouble. And I wonder what the king felt like when he looked into that fire and saw them walking and dancing around. Now watch as I put away the pieces, and I will put the story from today in our worship room so that when we return to church together, you can find it if you want to read the story again. And now it is time for reflection. You may want to get out some crayons or pipe cleaners or some Play-Doh. Perhaps you want to draw a picture or make some artwork about today's story. And when you're finished with reflection, it's time to read the Bible story. And today's story can be found in the chapter of Daniel, the book of Daniel in chapter 3. And that will tell you the whole story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And let's remember to light our Christ candle to remind us that God is always with us. And when we say our prayers, let's remember some of us may want to pray quietly inside ourselves, and some of us may want to pray out loud. But no matter how we pray, God always hears us.